Fascism is sort of dictatorship by the control of all aspects of the government. What was NPR and PBS? Did anybody see any conservatives on there? No. They have taken every institution with a iota of conservatism and destroyed it. What is network news? What is the media? What is K through 12? It's all a liberal institution. It's subsidized. And when any tiny person revolts, then they go crazy.
Well, hello, ladies, and hello, gentlemen, and welcome to Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. We are recording on Saturday, May 23rd, 2026. This particular episode will be up on Thursday, May 28th. A little distance between when we're recording and when this episode is up. There's the great VDH, who's this show is named for, has a little travel to do. So, Victor is the Martin and Ely Anderson Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution and the Wayne and Marsha Buskey Distinguished Fellow in History at Hillsdale College, and he's also a senior contributor to the Daily Signal, which is the happy home not only for this podcast, but also for Victor Davis Hanson. In a few words, go to the Daily Signal, find that, check it out. It's four times a week. Victor does 7, 8, 9, 10-minute video. People love it, as well they should. Victor's got a website, The Blade of Perseus. VictorHanson.com is the address. Go there, subscribe. I'll tell you why later. Also, you'll find a link to, I think you will, to your forthcoming book, Counter-Revolution.
Yeah, it's the galleys are coming out this week. So I have people that they mailed them to that wrote me about it.
Oh, well,
nice cover.
Okay, good. I'm jazzed.
They rejected the cover that I had of Donald Trump's fight with the ear, but they have another one where he's pointing that they thought was better.
Oh gosh, well, that photo is iconic. Not as iconic, of course, as the New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning photo of a fake situation, but there's not a single aspect of the world of arts and journalism that ideology.
I could have had the mug shot.
Oh, that would have been funny. All right. What are we going to talk about today, Victor? We have Newt Gingrich has a grandson of the what was the thing? Contract with America.
Yeah,
from 1994. We have Ivanka Trump was being threatened with murder by Iranians. Ketanji Brown, a bunch of California-related stories, and you have a piece, if we have time for it, you've got one of your Ultra articles from The Blade of Perseus. We may get your take on that. So we'll start off with Newt, and we'll do all that when we come back from these initial important messages.
Hey, I'm Bradley Devlin, and just like you, I'm a huge fan of Victor Davis Hanson. Whether it's his long-form podcast, Victor Davis Hanson in his own words, or his short-form content for the Daily Signal, Victor Davis Hanson in a few words, I always leave an episode learning something new.
I think they forgot the 1982 Falklands War.
And in the age of clickbait and rage bait, that's a really good feeling, right?
The media, thank you. You can leave now.
And if you agree, you might like my show, the Daily Signal's long-form interview podcast called The Signal Sit Down. Every week, we take you behind the scenes of the biggest battles in Washington, D.C. as they happen with some of the biggest names in politics. We explore big ideas, and we analyze the policymaking process from an unabashedly and unapologetically conservative perspective. And that's important now more than ever, especially with the Trump administration back in office, because in 2024, you sent Washington a message it couldn't ignore. It's your government, and together, we're taking it back. So check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you enjoy Victor Davis Hanson, we're there too. And drop me a follow on X at Bradley Devlin to stay updated with what's happening on the Signal Sit Down.
Hey folks, we're back with Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. So Victor, this is I forget where I found the source here, but Gingrich presents a 6-point plan for Trump to keep control of Congress. So I'm assuming Newt, some of us, get a little nervous here. Every day is another day closer to the elections, and we still have no finality with Iran. Prices are still high. So let me read this quickly. The plan includes lowering gas prices, a focus on the high oil prices on the global market, toppling the Iranian regime in a battle of the Persian Gulf, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, emphasizing the successes of the Make America Healthy Again movement, and also promoting a list of the craziest things that Democrats have done amid the Trump administration, and providing a blueprint for the American people about what the next 2 years of a Republican Congress and administration would look like. Victor, I think this makes a lot of sense, and Gingrich is a pretty smart dude.
I do too. I hope they do that. Hope they spend their sizable lead in fundraising, and they should have a series of ads. They should get the guy who made that ad in 2024. They are for they, them, and Trump is for you. You remember that one? Or they should hire Spencer Pratt's AI ad guy. And I hope they have a whole bunch of them where they said, do you really trust these people? And they can show Highcomb Jeffrey say we're in a war, and holding a baseball bat. They can show the women with the rubber phalluses shaking them at ice. They can have Mahmoud Khalil with his Hezbollah people at his rallies with Hezbollah flag. They can do all of that stuff. I hope they do it. I hope they don't go back to the Marcus of Queensberry rules that, that was what drove people crazy about Mitt Romney and John McCain. They wanted to win nobly rather than to lose ugly.
Yeah.
Trump wanted to win any way possible. And they hadn't seen a Republican do that really since Reagan. And that was a change. And they have to you can't play by the Marcus of Queensberry rules with the Democrats. They just can't. It doesn't work.
I wonder if Romney had gone for the jugular in that debate with Candy Crowley.
Should have.
Debate us, interrupt us. But I wonder if he would have.
He should have said, you should be ashamed of yourself, what you're doing. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And, when they started going after him for the dog on the car and the elevator, and his wife didn't talk to the garbage man, and they should have had an ad every day with Reverend Wright. Chickens coming home to roost.
Oh.
I say not God bless America, God. And they should have shown that. And then they should have had Obama with that cut where he said to the Chicago Sun-Times, you really go to church? Yes, I do. I've never missed a Sunday. And then they have the next one say, I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't in church. And then there's another one saying he married you and Michelle. So they could have done a lot of stuff, but they were too good to do that.
Yeah.
And they wanted to, he was a very wealthy man. McCain was very wealthy. He was a decorated veteran, and they had good lives ahead of them. Both of them they had prior offices. So, but the guys, the 10 to 15 million of the MAGA people didn't have good lives. The people, the assembly that were laid off, they didn't have any. They really needed a Republican to come in there and do something, but they didn't get it. That's why they stayed away.
Yeah.
It was Trump that brought them back in.
We had a National Review Institute summit. I think it was 2011. So it was before the 2012 election. And Romney was the principal. He was the governor of Massachusetts at the time, and he was the principal speaker. And even Mark Stein introduced him. So it was a setup to, like, wow, conservatives. And what he did was he started talking about his version of universal health care, Massachusetts. And it was such a, like, what? Can he not read the room? I mean, he ended up being the nominee anyway, but still.
I liked him. I liked his wife especially. They were very fine people, and they came about the date you're talking to the Hoover Institution, and they wanted to have breakfast with Tom and I, Sol.
Yeah.
And Tom was reluctant, but I said, Tom, we'll just meet at lunch that day, and we'll just go over to this place, and we'll call it our lunch. And so it was right during the oil. Oil was going high, and we weren't pumping that much oil. And Tom said something to the effect about there's these new frackers, and he kept going, well, we have switchgrass, and we can have sugarcane, and we can have this, and hydrogen. And Tom said, why do we need any of that? We have more oil than anybody in the world now in these new technologies. And he kept talking about switchgrass and biofuels like Al Gore. And then he left, and Tom kind of went to the bathroom, as he sometimes did when we were talking to people he didn't want to talk to.
The Irish exit, the soul exit.
Yeah, yes. And anyway, I liked him a lot, Mitt Romney, as a person, and his wife. They were very decent people, but they weren't going to detour from traditional aristocratic Republican orthodoxy, put it that way, or they didn't know how to. And that party the Democratic Party had abandoned the white working class, and they did not know how to recapture that and bring them into the fold. Talking about, it's like George H.W. Bush when he was campaigning against Dukakis, and all he could say was, we have to lower the capital gains tax. It's a good idea to do that, but that's not what people in the Rust Belt wanted to hear. The same thing with George W. Bush. People can criticize Karl Rove, but Karl Rove was a political genius to get him elected in 2004. But they were talking about things like, we're going to privatize Social Security. That's not what people wanted to hear.
Yeah.
They wanted to hear two things: that the economy was okay, and we were winning in Iraq, and we were going to come home.
If it wasn't for the Swift boat guys, O'Neill, I forget his first name. Nice
John.
guy. John.
Yeah. I had dinner with him. He had cancer. He was very ill.
Yeah.
He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
He was just the opposite of very well trained, educated lawyer. He was just the opposite of John Kerry. He was very modest. He wasn't an elite, and I think he had either in law, accounting, or something in maybe Texas.
Yeah.
They never. All they said is, "Don't Swift boat it, Swift boat it, Swiss boat." And then when they pointed out all the discrepancies in Kerry's story, it was like, well, once I got in the uniform and I went to Vietnam, I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
How dare you question my record? But those guys could question his record because they genuinely had been.
They were there with him.
Yeah.
Well, Victor, here's a topic I had wanted to raise when we last talked, and it had to do with the performative nature of Democrats. We were talking about what they stand for. Well, what is their? We just talked about, Newt Gingrich is suggesting a plan. What's a Democrat plan? But the Democrat plan is just performance art. So this, of course, gets to New York. This has to do with Mamdani and this press pass scandal, which I think has gotten some national attention for these ghoulish Luigi Mangione fangirls. So let me just read this quickly from the New York Post. Mayor Mamdani wouldn't commit Tuesday, that's last week, to revoking the city-issued press passes for 3 Luigi Mangione fangirls who publicly spouted unapologetic calls for violence this week. Self-proclaimed Mangionistas April Rios, Ashley Rojas, and Lena Weisbrot set off a firestorm Monday when they proclaimed outside a Manhattan courthouse that slain United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's children were, quote, better off without him, end quote, while wearing New York City press credentials, etc. By the way, you're on the masthead still of City Journal, Manhattan Institute's great publication.
Place.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful book. Brian Anderson's doing. Myron Magnet was a good friend of mine. He's a great editor, and Brian Anderson is
Brian's
the same caliber.
He's a super guy, but they cannot get. And that's a New York City-based public. They can't get press credentials at City Hall in New York. But these three.
Jack, come on now. All they had to do was endorse murder and assassination. They couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Well, this is the Democrat Party of America, though. This is the kind of performative art they're engaged in, as absent any other program.
It's kind of like what Jeff Bezos said the other day. He said something very profound. They were kind of grilling him, and he said, I'm going to be remembered not for how much money I made, and not for how much money I gave away in my philanthropic, although I've given billions, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to be remembered about how I brought good service at affordable prices to people's doorstep and allowed them to shop by just going online and getting anything in the world they want and they could price shop and they can get it safely delivered. And that's exactly true. But the point I'm making is these three people are ignorant. They don't understand. I tell you, I did the math, Jack, and I pay a lot of money for Medi-Cal supplement for
Right.
United Healthcare. And I've had it since I was, I guess, 65. So I was always a good bargain, you know what I mean? I had sinus operations and stuff, but I paid the surgeon in cash. So my point is, I was a good thing. But when you look at the bill that I just got,
Your surgery.
it's close. All the surgery, the removal, the lobectomy, and then going back in with a second surgery for 4 hours and the 6 transfusions, 5 blood, 1 platelet. If you look at all, and then being in the hospital, it's going to be when they finally get done. And I think I've had 20 scans, at least X-ray, MRIs, CT, PET scans. I think I glow in the dark. And the point is, they're going to pay all that. I don't know how they're going to do it with a shrinking, aging population, but they had one contested bill on a PET scan that they didn't understand why it was given within too close to the prior one, but there was a reason. And I think I won that arbitration. So my point is, what do they think happens? Do they ever go to communities like mine? When I go to certain stores and I go to the ER, I've gone twice in the last 5 years, I see people who have just arrived from Mexico. And I don't mean they're all Mexican American, they're Central Americans or whatever, but some of these people are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and they have cancer, they have tuberculosis, they have malaria. They've never been to a doctor in Oaxaca. They've never been to a doctor in Chiapas. They have never been to a doctor in Michoacan. Now, that's another issue about how you afford that, but when they go in for health care, it's a charge, and there's no such thing as preventive health care. And I don't want to quote what someone told me when I was at a recent emergency room, and I won't say where, but the person said to me, 75% of the people that come in here have diabetes.
Yeah.
Start off. And I looked at the schedule. 1 out of every 4 in California that goes to a hospital has diabetes. So what I'm saying is that we have an aging population. We have 53 million people who were not born in the United States, many of them coming from Asia, Africa, Latin America. They're very poor, and they get quality care. I can tell you that I'm a fifth generation Californian, and I went to Stanford Med, and I would say that half the patients they had a card at the desk where I checked in that had 20 languages in it. And I say that maybe half the people I saw there were either just came to America or they were first generation. And I think that's great. They got world-class care. No different than when I got. But somebody has to pay for that. And these healthcare companies you can say they're going broke, or the CEOs make too much money, but it's not a win-win deal given the type of healthcare that's so expensive these days and the research and development. So for 3 ignoramuses to say that the world's better off without this guy who is trying to manage I think it's the largest healthcare company, insurance.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do given what he's up against. And to shoot him in the back like a coward in a planned assassination, and I should say alleged, but it's on camera, and then to turn him into a Charles Manson, not even Charles Manson, at least his acolytes said that he was crazy and he was something, but these people think this guy is Christ-like. Yeah. It's disgusting. And where did they get that? Where did they learn that? They got it from the university. Elon Musk said something really wise the other day. and maybe you sent it to me, Jack. He was basically saying that the smartest people don't graduate from the best schools. They go there and they find that it's not very valuable and they quit. It's not because they can't. He's talking about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, some of the people in Silicon Valley, himself. Well, not him, he graduated, but he was basically saying it's a waste of time, the way they've watered everything down and the way that they're indoctrinated. And you're better off. And he said, you can get a free education. There's so many online courses that are free at universities. Hillsdale, you could get a far better instruction in the humanities. All you'd have to do is enroll in all the Hillsdale courses. Don't go to college. And when you had questions, call an online service to a professor. There's so many good professors at Hillsdale. I bet if they could just take one or two and say, we're going to give you extra release time or pay you, but for 8 to 5, 1 day a week, you're going to just field calls from the hundreds of people that make reservations to ask a question about the course.
Yeah.
And forget the degree and all that.
Well,
we're turning out people who are degreed and they're in debt and they know nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well,
except ideology.
Well, they knew nothing from the third grade on too, so that's part of the problem. It's not just college, but it's the whole rigmarole. By the way, Victor, for a lot of people, re-education is a word associated with communism, but Hillsdale, those type of courses are great for people who have been through college.
Education.
Yeah, I missed it, and here's a chance to catch up what I should have gotten when I paid a ton of money for it. One last thing, since we're talking these three ladies, quote unquote ladies, advocating for crime, but just more evidence of the Democrat Party being a pro-criminal party or pro-crime. There was a vote in the House last week in Congress. It passed 231 to 186. All 186 against were Democrats who voted against this bill to deport, a bill requiring the automatic deportation of illegals who commit welfare fraud. And
that's so mean.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
So mean.
The bill would include Social Security fraud, SNAP fraud, mail, conspiracy to defraud the U.S., theft or bribery involving federal funds, ID fraud, and other crimes. These are criminals, so they should go to jail anyway, but maybe it's lucky for them. They don't have to go to jail. We'll just kick your butt out of the country. But 186 Democrats have a problem with this.
Yeah, what they're saying is, well, we give all this money to the people who administer the fraud, and they give donations to us, and then we get a subsidized population who is entirely dependent on our largesse because we tell them I got something in the mail yesterday from the local Democratic, and it has all the candidates, but it had their negative, and it said, I thought they were going to have more than that. They said, you can't vote for the following Trump Republicans. Oh. These are local, congressional, judicial, all assembly races. And they said, and the merciless Doge cuts. that was almost nothing that Doge. And then it said, and the corruption of Donald Trump. And I thought that was it. That was all they had.
Yeah.
But, it's funny. If I could document how many times, I think I've been to the store once since surgery, and I went in there and it was almost a textbook case. I was following people and I was in a line. Usually there's not much of a line. I go in very early, but a youngish 30-year-old woman had 2 baskets, and I thought, oh my God, here we go again.
Get your book out. You're going to read it.
Here we go again. And I thought, okay, here is the staples, the hamburger meat, all this. Too many. RFK is right. If I looked at that basket, everything was processed. Everything was processed.
Yeah.
Frozen prepared pizza, frozen prepared macaroni, canned this. Anyway. And then the second one came. And this one had beer, and it had wine, and it had, when she got checked out of the first one, which was paid entirely with EBT, and they took something out of the EBT thing and said, actually, that's not covered. And then she got up to the counter and got cigarettes, and she asked for lottery tickets.
Of course.
So I thought this will be interesting.
The trifecta.
So I was playing, undercover auditor. And so then I I kind of loitered around because I had very little. I waited a long time. She had a huge basket of EBT goods. So then I went out and I said to myself, Tesla, BMW, Mercedes SUV, or double Chevy or Ford $90,000 truck, which is going to be, sure enough, I was wrong about it was a BMW SUV. She
Are
gets
you
in.
kidding me?
No, no.
I couldn't afford to look at one. Never
No,
mind
I don't think it
own
was
one or
bought.
drive one.
I think they leased them for, I don't know, $700 a month.
Wow.
And if you're saving that much on groceries, but the point I'm making is, and the person was not svelte. I would say she was morbidly obese, if maybe 40 pounds over what she should weigh. So my point is that we are indoctrinated with how cruel a society we are, how horrible and racist and unkind, when our tax system is the most progressive in the world. And we're getting to the point where the 1% pay about 50%, and we get about 40% who pay no taxes, state or federal. And we're the most generous welfare. And yet, when you just ask for a modicum, a teeny weeny bit of audit, they call you all these names. And when you see this, they say, well, Victor, that you're like Johnny Cash in Welfare Cadillac. That's what Reagan said. But it was true. It was true.
Yeah.
So
they have a right to eat Doritos, Victor. Don't you know that?
I don't know, but I know that it's not confined to any one ethnic group. Because when I go to the Walmart or somewhere in Hillsdale, I see the same thing. Not quite as it's a much poorer county than California, but it's nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, but by the way,
fraud it's Obama said, spread the wealth. Remember Joe the plumber? Why do you want to tax me? I want to spread the wealth. That's how they view it.
And if there are children in that lady's family and it's school season, school year, the kids are getting meals, breakfast and lunch at school also, but paid for you by you and me. So
I wouldn't even complain about that, but I was wrong. I said, I'm going to be here for 10 minutes because she's going to have 5 different EBT cards, throw in a green WIC card for the diapers and formula. And she only had 2.
Okay.
And they always said, sorry, this is expired and we need an ID because they did say this is a different name than the one that you're showing, the other one. But they didn't do anything. They took it.
Well, maybe she got her diapers from Gavin Newsom. So we've got a couple of California things to get to, Victor. But first, to our viewers and our listeners, if you've studied enough history, you start to see a pattern. Nations don't lose their way overnight. They drift through debt and division until one day you realize the foundations you thought were permanent are never permanent at all. Today, America is spending at levels once reserved for wartime. We've normalized deficits that would have stunned earlier generations, and policymakers now debate whether the only path forward is more intervention, more printing, more distortion. But here's the historical truth. Every society that pushed its currency beyond discipline eventually paid a price. The wise never waited for collapse, though. They prepared for the correction, and that's why so many thoughtful Americans, especially those nearing retirement or in retirement, are reallocating part of their wealth into something that has outlasted every paper experiment in human history: physical gold, not as speculation, but as insulation. Now, our reputation matters here at Victor Davis Hanson, in his own words, which is why we're partnering with Allegiance Gold, a company distinguished by integrity, reliability, and an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. For years, they've guided Americans through transparent education and long-standing relationships built on trust. And right now, they're extending a special Liberty offer to our listeners to help you get started with real gold. Whether your funds are in a retirement account or sitting in the bank, if you believe, as we do, that the best time to reinforce your position is before the storm becomes obvious, call 844-790-9191, 844-790-9191. excuse me, or visit protectwithvictor.com. That's 844-790-9191, 844-790-9191, or visit protectwithvictor.com. History rewards those who take the long view, and we thank the good people from Allegiance Gold for sponsoring Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Victor, we're going to talk about one little thing, California. We're going to take a little break, then we'll talk about a few more California things.
If you enjoy Victor Davis Hanson, you might enjoy the Daily Signal's flagship show, The Tony Kinnett Cast. The same common sense perspectives you love, weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And unlike some of the other evening shows, we work up until showtime to bring you the latest breaking news, analysis, and good old American sarcasm. Tom Tillis, I'm pretty sure might have been useful at one time as a doorstop. Find the Tony Kinnett Cast on YouTube, X, radio, TV, or wherever you get your podcasts.
But you have your primaries coming up. So two of these are political. Let's stick to Spencer Pratt and water. He put out something the other day. I'm looking at an X post from Eric Doherty. Wow, L.A. mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt just exposed Karen Bass after the reservoirs are still bone dry, despite it being peak fire season. Two reservoirs that were drained, the Palisades and the Santa Ynez, and they haven't been repaired. And where's the money going? To homeless drugs and NGO fraud. Anyway, Victor. No surprise there, I guess.
She's done nothing as mayor but destroy things. They asked her why she didn't solve the homeless problem, and she said, well, I didn't know I'd get so much bureaucratic resistance. Well, what resistance did you get? You didn't articulate it. Why aren't there well, somebody didn't do it. The woman who was in charge of it was from PG&E, and she was the head of Los Angeles Water and Power. They paid her, I think, $700,000. Yeah. Had the reservoir above Pacific Palisades been full, they might have saved half that area. But, of course, what happens is that she was a DEI person, and then she got hired by Puerto Rico as a consultant to help them improve their grid system. And then I don't know what happened to the fire chief. She was the one that was lecturing us all on DEI hiring. She also had that lieutenant who... Remember, she said, if I come in and I see a man, I'm not going to, she wasn't going to pick him up or something.
Yeah, we're going to drag you down the stairs. So
yeah. They asked her, well, can you pick up a man? Well, no, I don't have to pick him up. I'll drag him down.
Yeah.
And then there was, of course, the vice mayor that phoned in the bomb threat. And they didn't even put him in jail. They gave him a suspended sentence, I think. Right. He was in charge, I guess. And then there's a city council of L.A., 15 members. There's not one Republican. I think there's one independent on it. Yeah. And they're all hard left. And they were the ones, remember about Democrats and the left. There's a racist streak that goes back to the founding of the Democratic. So when they had a hot mic, the three Hispanic members were making fun of an African-American adopted boy, right? Gay father, and they were saying basically he looked like a primate, and the father was gay and trying to show him off. It was disgusting, but there were no consequences to that really either. Yeah. And so Los Angeles is, if you didn't have Karen Bass, you'd have to invent her. She represents what is Los Angeles today. So does Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff he represents the enclaves of very, very wealthy people who feel that they're so wealthy that they can shield themselves from the consequences of their deleterious ideology. And we don't, you know what? Yeah, there may be homeless, but we don't see them. And you know what? When a homeless guy breaks into our neighborhood, we get rid of him. The neighborhood cops get rid of him, our own security patrols. And I have a 10-foot wall around my place, That's how they think. And I feel much better when I vote Democratic and feel that I have all that toxic empathy. So, and then there's the people who say, well, if I vote Republican, I'm not going to get all this stuff. And they could cut off all the drugs. I mean, they would, if they cut off the drugs and didn't legalize it, the fentanyl and everything, they could have a big, big detox city, outside the city limits, tent city, where people were not given any drugs whatsoever, but healthcare, nourishment, and make them have to work, and they wouldn't have access to drugs.
Yeah.
But we would never allow that in the United States.
Hell no. Victor, what's your gut tell you about that election?
Well, she went from, I think, 60% down to 40, and he went from 10% above 20. And the Ramnon, she is a communist, I think you'd call it. She calls everybody a fascist, but I think she's a hardcore socialist bordering on communism. She is, I think, a few points, 1 or 2 behind Pratt. They think that she and Bass will be the runoffs, but the key is the momentum. He was on television the other day and says he's going to win in the primary, meaning he's going to get 51%. But I think if he can beat Ramnon and they can hold Bass to 48%, 47%, he has a good chance in the general election.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that he can win. But he's up against so many,
union money is big deal out there.
The unions, the SEI union runs LA, and the fire, all the city municipal unions, and then he's got probably a couple million people on federal assistance, state assistance that say that, DOGE is horrible, and they're getting, and then you probably, and this is very controversial, but Los Angeles is probably the second or third largest city in the world with Mexican national, not Mexican-American citizens, but Mexican nationals, maybe 1 or 2 million, at least from Mexico, especially under Biden. So if you don't require an ID and you don't require any type of on election day physically coming there and showing an ID, then what would you expect happen when you mail them out every time a person registers a car or files for unemployment or welfare?
Yeah.
So that's going to be very hard for him.
Well,
but I'm hoping that he can get into the runoff.
Yeah. Let us pray. Well, we're going to talk about the governor's race, and then a fire out there, and maybe another topic when we come back from these important messages.
Since the founding of America 250 years ago, many things have changed, but some things never do. The commitment of husband and wife, the importance of passing along our values to our children, the faithfulness of God. Some wonder how we can ensure America will continue to thrive. As long as we keep first things first, we've only just begun. America, the beautiful.
We are back with Victor Davis Hanson, in his own words, recording on Saturday, May 23rd. This episode is up on Thursday, May 28th. Victor's website, The Blade of Perseus, is a thing to which you can subscribe. You want to stick your toe in the water, it's $6.50 for a month, but it's discounted the full year for $65. Why would you do that? Because twice a week, Victor writes an exclusive article for The Blade of Perseus, and he does an exclusive video. And there's tons and tons of free stuff, archives, and the site, I believe the site's getting retrofitted and upgraded and
yes, it is
beautified. So
beautified.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so check it out. The Blade of Perseus, VictorHanson.com is the address. And one more time, I think it makes a great Father's Day gift. So do consider that.
Yeah, I have a series running on the Ultra paywall about who are really the fascists. They keep saying fascist, dictatorship, tyranny, oligarchy, but who are the people?
Let's talk about that because because you mentioned number 3 there running in the race. Fascist is the word they just throw out at everybody.
Yeah.
When and whom to fear about dictatorship, and you write.
Yeah, the fascists in this country are not going to be orange colored and crude language and comb over with a Queen's accent. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay.
They're just not going to look
Bronx
like,
accent.
and they're not going to be eating Big Macs and going to mixed martial arts. They're going to be suave. They're going to be like Mondami or Obama. They're going to talk like an NPR commentator, and they're going to be empathetic. And they're not going to say anything bad about anybody. And when they get in power, you saw what Obama did. You saw what Biden did. He was just, as I said, an effigy. And then you see what Mondami's doing. They are mean people. And what they want to do when they get in, if you wanted to, fascism is sort of dictatorship by the control of all aspects of the government. What was NPR and PBS? Did anybody see any conservatives on there? I didn't. They used to have your mentor, William F. Buckley, and I like Margaret Hoover, but it's not William F. Buckley firing line. No. They have taken every institution with a iota of conservatism and destroyed it. What is network news? What is the media? What is K through 12? What is all? It's all a liberal institution. It's subsidized. And when any tiny person revolts, if Barry Weiss says, 60 Minutes was getting out of hand, or Paramount, gosh, Stephen Colbert's costing us $40 million a year for him to spout all this hatred, then they crazy. So they control the institution. If you want to win an election and you got an embarrassing laptop, then you call up the FBI and you say, I know you have it. I know it's true, but don't release it. And then you call Facebook and Twitter up and you say, listen, our FBI's are not going to let you run that story on any social media that laptop is authentic. No way. And then Joe Biden, 3 days later, goes, "Whoa, Donald Trump! I knew you would bring that up because it's a Russian, and I know it's Russian disinformation because we had 51 experts that Anthony Blinken rounded up, and Clapper and Brennan and Leon Panetta. They all swore that it was Russian, made in Russia, or they kind of gave a little out. All the hallmarks of." That's what fascism is. Fascism is you change the system when you get in power. I don't mean you change policy. I mean you change the system. So when somebody tells you something on the left, believe them. When James Carville screams and yells what he's going to do, or Susan Rice screams and yells what they're going to do, or Hiram Jeffries screams and yells what he's going to do, then they are going to do that if they can, and they don't care about the law. If they can get rid of the Electoral College, they will through this voting compact. It's unconstitutional, but they will do it. If they are in the majority of the Senate after the midterm, they will get rid of the filibuster. They'll find a way to do it. They promise to do it. If they get powers, they will ignore the Constitution about the admittance of new states, and they will find a way to get D.C. and Puerto Rico in. That's just what they plan to do. And if they get their way, there will be no more 169-year 15-person Supreme Court. They don't care about tradition. 169 years, so what? Hawaii and Alaska, the last state, we now have the perfect 50-state union. We've done this since 1959. We're up to 67, 68 years. They don't care. Filibuster, probably 200 years. They don't care. Electoral College, with us from the beginning, 238 years ago when the Constitution, they don't care. That is what fascism. And if you have political enemies, they're all mad that Donald Trump has a fund, which I kind of wish he didn't, but he does, for the IRS owed him money because they broke the law and released his tax records to the public, and now he wants to reward people or compensate people who were hurt by the government. Okay, but what a fascist does is he takes the judiciary and he wages war against all of his opponents and destroys them so they can't. So how would he do that? How would a fascist get rid of the political opposition? Well, I think they would raid his home and sprinkle classified labels over all the ground and then take all the files out and spread them on the ground and take a picture and say, there were 14,000 files at Donald Trump, and then say, oh, yeah, there was only 102, of 14,000 were actually classified, and Donald Trump had the right to declassify as president, and Joe Biden took him out for 30 years as senator and vice president when he didn't have the right, and he put him in insecure locations, and he didn't come forward until he was afraid they'd call him a hypocrite because he had appointed a special prosecutor. That's fascism. Or let's take him off the ballot so the people can't even vote. Let's get 25 almost Democratic and purple states said they wanted to take Trump off the ballot so you couldn't vote on him. And then we had the E. Jean Carroll lawfare. And then we had the Letitia James lawfare. And we had the Alvin Bragg lawfare. Then we had the Fannie Willis lawfare, and we had the Jack Smith, and they all had some things in common. Number one, none of those people will ever charge anybody again. Number two, they would have never charged even Donald Trump had he not announced he was going to run for a third term. And were they coordinated? Oh, Victor, that's conspiracy theory, because that you're talking about a local county and Fannie Willis and Fulton County, and then you're talking about the state of New York with Letitia James, federal government, Jack Smith. How could they be coordinated? Donald Trump announced on November 15th, 2022, he was going to run for president. All hell broke loose. And what did these autocratic people who might want to use the fascists, they moved. And in 3 days, what happened on a Friday afternoon? Well, on November, I think it was 18th, 2022, Letitia James showed up at the White House. She's in the logs. She said she was just visiting. Same day, Nathan, has anybody heard of a Fulton County flunky prosecutor going to the White House and meeting with the White House counsel? You think the Tulare County prosecutor, the Fresno County prosecutor goes in and says, hey, Trump, I want to spend the day at the White House with you. No, he was in there. Nathan Wade, he even charged them for it. That was shameless. Is that the end of it? No. You know what happened that day? They appointed Jack Smith, special prosecutor. Well, that's just a trifecta. That's not, well, there was another one, Michael Cole Angelo, who had been the brains behind Letitia James and was rewarded for that real estate farce suit. So Merrick Garland said, we need you. We'll make you number 3 in the DOJ. So that's what he did. And then on that same day, people said, oh my God, 3 days ago, Donald Trump declared his candidacy. We've got Nathan down there with with Fannie, and we've got Jack Smith appointed, and Letitia's over with, but this Bragg guy's another incompetent. He might blow it. Hey, Mr. Cole, and we just appointed you this trophy for working with Letitia James. Can you step down and go work for Alvin Bragg? That all happened on the same day, 3 days after Trump said he was going to run for president. That wouldn't have happened had he been a Democrat or if he had said, I'm not going to run for president. So that's fascism. And if you think, well, that was, I don't know. How about Barack Obama surveilling 20 associate press journalists, grabbed their phone data? Yep, he did. And that is very weird. Or how about ordering the CIA director, the FBI director, and the director of national intelligence to ignore the intelligence and go after Hillary Clinton's political opponent, and then when that failed, to destroy him in the White House? Or how about the FBI being told to lawyer to forge a document so they could go surveil Carter Page? You could go on what they did. Lisa Page, remember her, and Peter Strzok? Their little text exchange. Remember what Andy said, what Andy reviewed, that's Andrew McCabe, there's no way we're going to let Donald Trump be president. And it's kind of like an insurance policy. That was the Crossfire Hurricane. So, yeah, that's what fascism can be.
Yeah. Well, it's a much bandied word, and none of it is used in that sense.
They never say anything. They say he's a fascist, and I just say, well, if he's a fascist, tell me what he's doing. That's fascist. Tell me what he's doing. I just told you what they were doing that was fascist. Tell me what he's doing. And they don't. They don't.
that Victor was talking about an article he has. That's an Ultra article, one of a series that you're doing. So folks who are interested, do check out the website and do subscribe. You can read that and all the other Ultra special series that you've written prior. That's all accessible. Victor, back to California. Let's take the political, while we were talking about the LA race, the gubernatorial race. Now, this is an article I saw today. It's headline, California's governor's race turning into a three-way fight. There was a poll, Evitaris tracking poll. This was commissioned for the Democrat Party. It has Hilton and Becerra tied for the lead, each with 22%, and Steyer at 15%. So anyway, I don't know if there's much more to say other than that.
In California voting, Hilton has got to be in the polls by 5 points to get in. Because of our mysterious, what happens, everybody, as you know, in California, you who are living here, after the election is over, we say we have the most sophisticated tech sector in the world with our $14 trillion capitalized Silicon Valley, but it takes 3 weeks to count our ballots. And that's because all of these union groups and activist groups send in mail-in ballots. And that usually means that whoever is ahead on election day doesn't matter. It's who has the ballots 3 weeks from now. And so Hilton's really got to get more than that. I don't know, Chad Bianco and they're splitting that conservative vote. But Javier Becerra's kind of slowed down a little bit from his surge. I had a conversation with a Politico the other day, very brilliant guy, and he said that Swalwell was taken out, but he was taken out by Tom Steyer. He thought that Steyer's people got him out, and then he would be the person, and then they got back at him by the Democratic people who didn't want him because he's not really part of their machine. They took Becerra like a deflated swimming pool toy, and they pumped him back up and showered him with money. And he's pretty incompetent if you've seen him. And so I think the San Francisco Chronicle endorsed Katie Porter.
Really?
Yeah, they did. And
because she's quite lagging in these polls now.
Yeah, and the guy that's even lagging worse,
Matt Mahan.
The Dukakis guy, kind of like Dukakis from San Jose.
Oh, gosh.
Remember, I'm not an ideologue. I'm just competent. Competence, not ideology.
Yeah.
That's what Mike told. So let's hope that it works. But when you lose 300,000 Republicans a year to other states, and you've been doing it for 20 years, and you've got disaffected Republicans that are hiding up in the foothills or in the valley, and they're getting discouraged, and you've got a galvanized Democratic machine, it's going to be very hard to win. Yeah. I hope Pratt can do it, but on the mayor level, and I hope Steve Hilton can do it at the state level. But it's almost And then if you do win, as Arnold noticed, he thought because he was a mega superstar when he got reelected, he could just ram through, fair unionization. You don't have to pay your union dues if you don't want to. And we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden, bam, they destroyed him. They had, 3 months of nonstop ads where they showed him in a private plane smoking a cigar and said, this is your governor. And he's cutting out aid to single moms that are pregnant, and that was it.
Yeah. Did the train came through him? Yes, the high
that
speed.
was a ballot proposition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was either in 2006 or 2008, and it was billed as like $90 billion, and then that money in that time, and it was going to connect Los Angeles through Tehachapi to Bakersfield to Sacramento, and then 2/3 of the way to Sacramento, a link over Pacheco Pass and connect with Caltrans in the peninsula area, like San Jose.
Right.
And then you could.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to.
You don't want to get
down
into
the
it.
rabbit hole. Yeah. All right, let me talk about a fire. So there's a great website. We've talked about them before, Unwon. I love it because they talk about things rural. And as a city guy, we need to be, we really need to keep our attention to what government does to abuse folks who are rural folks. So there is a national park. It was once a California ranch, and it is on fire. Maybe it's still on fire, Victor, because this piece is from a few days ago. So here's the story. A wildfire on Santa Rosa Island has consumed nearly 15,000 acres, is 0% contained as of Tuesday morning. That was a week ago. It's the biggest fire in California so far this year, the largest in the island's history. The island was once the home of Vail and Vickers, a cattle ranch. That was before the government took the land, forced the ranchers and the cattle off, shot all the deer and elk. Now, with no grazers left to manage fire fuel, the largely abandoned island is burning along with some of the last remnants of the remaining ranch. It was taken to be preserved. Yet today I watch it
is
burn.
preserved.
Yeah,
It is preserved. I wrote something about that once. They had a crazy editor who was actually fair for the LA Times. So for about a year, I wrote guest columns for them about the Aspen Fire and the Paradise Fire. And a person replied to it. I think he was from UC Environmentals. He said it was good to have these fires because they charred pine trees and they all decayed afterwards, and that enriched the ecosystem with grubs and worms, and then birds could eat them and build your way up. And this is the way it had always been. And I was a humanist in the bad sense of trying to say humans could privilege themselves. I don't understand California. I never quite understood this, that when you look at the map from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles, you see, I don't know, 8 or 9 of these islands. The Santa Cruz Island, the Catalina Island is the only really one that's inhabited. You see Santa Barbara Island, Santa Rosa Island, San Miguel Island, and they're all within 40 miles of the coast. They're beautiful places. They don't have water, I suspect. But I didn't understand why you wanted to evict everybody and make them bird sanctuaries or the sparrow sanctuary or something, and not let people go on there. And I think they have organized tours every certain times of the year you can walk around. But what was so bad about allowing this family to take care of it? Or it's private property. What makes an island different from the mainland? You can just go in and destroy this, and then the custodians who take care of these places have no attachment to them. They just think it's a little tessera in their mosaic of curriculum vitae and dossier and their left wing, but they don't know anything. They don't know much about outside their field. They don't know what people like. They don't think in those terms. They don't think this would be really nice if there's 8 or 9 islands and we just took 2 or 3. And we allowed, people to come out during the day. We have the highly commercial Catalina Island, so we're going to have one where a nice big pier, and we'll let people come out and fish. We'll make a bike trail. We'll have a concession, one hotel. They don't think like that, but that would be wonderful for the people of LA, and they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Here you have there's no islands in California, basically, and you have these big, some of them are big, some of them are, they're only 1 square mile, but it would be a wonderful thing. And they didn't just not do that, they evicted people, and then the result was what we see now.
I hope to go to one of them, Catalina, when our friend.
I want to go there too. I really want to do that before I kick off.
Well, there's a guy, Norm, I'm not going to give his last name, who's been on a number of National Review cruises, lives down in San Diego. I think you know him. And he's invited several times. Someday I'm going to take someone up on one of these kind offers to come spend a week in my special place. I've never done that. Victor, let's conclude by, I'm springing this on you, although I sent you a clip of this. Azra Nomani, who's a friend, she used to write for the Wall Street Journal. She's now running an investigative shop at Fox News. She's terrific. I'm very fond of her. She was also, as a mom, a leader in the Northern Virginia fight against, these kids who were doing extremely well, but because they happened to be they were just the wrong pigmentation or group. So their test scores were precluded from national merit honors.
Yeah, I remember
and all
that. I'm glad we eliminated racism in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. Well, she's now doing investigative stuff for Fox. So pro-Cuba activist groups face Department of Justice foreign influence investigation. Here's her story. Amongst the foreign leaders who've been on the Trump administration's target list, Raul Castro is now up for charges by the U.S. government for murder charges for the 1996 shootdown of those Brothers to the Rescue planes. I don't know if folks remember that. So this was announced on Wednesday. At 1:54 p.m. on Wednesday, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, a Marxist political organization deeply embedded in a hands-off Cuba campaign, published 6 pre-produced graphics denouncing the indictment as a baseless indictment of Castro, a pretext for another war. And then within short order, this is the whole point of what Azra is doing, 145 nonprofit labor groups, advocacy organizations, activist collectives across America were mobilized immediately in support of the Cuban government, the Communist Party of Cuba, based instantly when these charges came out. It's just an idea of the scope and scale and how cross-pollinated the left is in America. Anyways, I recommend folks check out her article. And
at least you got to give them credit. It used to be that calling someone a communist was like the worst thing you could call somebody.
Yeah.
But now they say they're democratic socialists, and there's even people who say they're communist, and you know them by what they're doing. So you really do get the impression that they prefer what Cuba looks like today or 10 years ago than the United States, except they would never go down there and live in Cuba or any other communist relic. But they like the idea of it.
Well, they'll visit on a cruise. I did see some article the other night some news clip. Of course, a blackout. The one place that's not blacked out in Havana is the 5-star hotel that also all the elites.
You can imagine what the left's worst nightmare is about Cuba. It's not the Bay of Pigs redux. It's not Trump trying to invade. No, it's that government imploding like the Soviet Union, like Eastern Europe, and then 20,000 multi-millionaires are Cubans from Miami. They go in there and they take those waterfronts. And they make these beautiful hotels and, Escalade, and they make it sort of like a beautiful place. And that's what they're terrified.
Yeah.
They would do it too.
There was a professor, I assume on real fascist regimes, this is the norm, but in Cuba, professor was caught on video the other day. I'm waiting 9 hours in line at a store for food that when you finally can get it, if they have it, you get home, there's no way you can cook it because there's no electricity. And then even if you did there's no way to preserve it because there's no electricity for refrigeration or anything like that. So it is a hellacious situation that's hopefully will break sooner than later. So, Victor, I want to just read a couple of comments that some folks have sent in. Great appreciation for all the wisdom you share as we come to the conclusion of today's episode. Becky Teague writes, I thank God that we have Victor's voice in a crazy upside-down world. Thank you, Sammy. And Victor, T. Lindsay 1007 writes, I hope Trump is listening to VDH about the Iran war. Trump needs to stop negotiating and take action ASAP. Maybe by the time this episode is out, we will have seen evidence of
now
that.
They're convincing me he can't do it during the Hajj, the once-in-a-lifetime trek of a Muslim to Mecca. But I would remind the Trump administration that the Yom Kippur War was conducted during the most holy part of the Jewish year. And in some places it's called the Ramadan War because it dovetailed with Ramadan.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any objections to it. Muslims, radical Muslims, they only have objections if you make the objection. They're flexible. They'll fight anytime, anywhere. Ramadan, the Hajj, it doesn't matter. But it does matter if you let it matter. And if they think that you're worried about it, then they will double down. If you just say, I don't care.
Yeah.
You attack during Christmas, you attack during Yom Kippur, we attack during Hajj, so what? And that's Trump's attitude.
Yeah, these kind of, not constraints is the wrong word, but even the first Gulf War, wasn't it? We want to be finished in 100 hours. What did it matter if it was 100 hours as opposed to 99, 100?
They finished that. They let that war. They cut it off. They could have done another 2 days and got rid of Saddam.
Yeah,
and then I think they would have had somebody unlike. They wouldn't. That Cheney and those guys were not going to, have a consensual government and all that nation building. They could have just got somebody to come in they could work with, and they wouldn't have killed all the Kurds and the Marsh Arabs and everything if they had done that. But that's, I don't know what to say, but Donald Trump needs to stop negotiating, because it's not negotiations.
Yeah.
It's can't hear you. What shape is the desk? It's what the communists did in Paris with us over the Vietnam War.
Or
round table or rectangle.
Pork chop hill. Same thing. 30.
Yeah.
Right.
Enrich uranium to 21, 22. We'll kind of put it off here, but maybe not there.
Yeah.
Something we'll discuss next week in Pakistan. And we'll include the Straits of Hormuz. Maybe we'll allow X number in, and we'll take a little toll, but we'll call it a fee. That's what they want to do. And then all of a sudden, we're getting 5 months. We've just got June, July, August, September, October, and then we're at the midterm. And that's their plan. Talk, and then rebuild, and then we finally go away, and they say they won the war. And Robert Kagan, who was, as I said, son of a great American, probably one of the greatest American classicist ancient historians and a fabulous teacher, Donald Kagan, he's written an article basically saying we lost the war. And he used to be a conservative Republican, but he
was
now.
Yeah. He's wrote for
married to
National Review
Victoria.
any number of times, but
not
part of that
longer.
whole cabal. One last comment from Patricia Horlick. This program plus listening to my Bible app are my favorite ways to end my day. Thank you. Victor, I do want to say, for me, Civil Thoughts, please go to civilthoughts.com, sign up. You'll get my free weekly email newsletter that has 14 recommended readings. It's called Civil Thoughts, but civilthoughts.com, you're going to love it. This is still Memorial Day weekend while we're talking, and we talked about this, I think, 2 episodes ago. Turner Classic Movies is showing a vast range.
I did watch Guns of Navarone last night.
Well, I didn't stay up for that because that was
it was early here. It was earlier.
But I
here.
watched MacArthur before, and I'd never seen it with Gregory Peck. And
I saw half of it. It wasn't as good as Patton.
No, but so it was an attempt, I think, to be There's just one Patton, you can't. But it was okay. MacArthur is interesting. More than an interesting character. He's one of the great
odd
Americans.
to see a movie that has David Niven, Gregory Peck, and Anthony Quinn all in the major role.
Stanley
Baker, who died, I think, at 45 of lung cancer.
Yeah.
And then they had Anthony Quayle, who's always a good character actor.
I love.
And then one of my favorite Greek actresses,
Yeah.
Maria. Oh, what's her name? Irene Papas. Is it Irene Papas? Yeah, she was great. And then
She was a traitor, right? She was
the good Greek woman. The traitor was she was an Italian actress.
Oh, I should know that.
Something, and she had a tragic life. That was her big role, and she was born in Italy. I can't remember her name, but she died very early of overdose. I think she was only in four shows. And they also had James Darren as Spiros.
Oh, yeah, right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And Stanley Baker, he was great in Zulu.
Oh, that movie. I love that movie.
So that was a great. I the first time I had seen it with my parents, I think in 1962. Then I watched it again. I wasn't impressed the second time I watched it, about 10 years, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
What, the
It's
Guns
not
of
a fa- it's not a
Navarone?
it's not a historic. There wasn't a 15-inch naval guns, but there was a lot of bad decision making with the British on the Dodecanese Islands at the end, and they didn't need to try to take the Nazis out, and they did, and it was a disaster, and that was part of the background historically that the novelists had elaborated on.
Okay.
But that was a great. There was some really good movies coming up. I haven't seen today's movies that are on, but I'll go watch them.
Okay. Well, Victor,
Okay.
you have been wonderful as usual. Thanks for all the wisdom and analysis you shared. Thanks, folks, for watching and listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Daily Signal. Please like, share, and subscribe to be notified for more content like this. You can also check out my own website at victorhanson.com and subscribe for exclusive features in addition.